talk to baseball with NBC Sports Radio host and baseball insider Seth Everett as the Phils getting ready to take on the Rangers. Jared Eichhoff, Yu Darvish, the pitching matchup tonight. But Seth, the Phillies, who have played the Nationals, it seems like 45 times already, finally get away from the Nationals. But are the Nationals 8 games up already in the East? Is the East already won?
It might be. It might be. I said all along I thought the Mets were pretenders. I'm on record as saying that. Boy, they have a fun week since we last spoke. And then, to tell you the truth, Washington's just head over heels. And, I don't think I'm saying anything demeaning when I say it. The Nationals are better than every other team by a lot. And it just matters because of the Bryce Harper situation and because that nucleus, Ryan Zimmerman is having an amazing year, but he's not getting any younger. There's a great sense of urgency for the Nationals. It is imperative that the Washington Nationals go to the World Series and, hopefully win it. Yeah, no doubt. It's funny because I was watching that game the other day when the Phillies played the Nationals, and I'm thinking, man, this used to be the Expos, and you wonder the direction of this franchise. What will happen to it if they don't win this year? Like, where would this team end up if Bryce Harper leaves and then all of a sudden this group of guys is just no longer? Well, he's not leaving until, end of 2018, right. But I think for that whole, Beltway area, Manny Machado, 2018, same thing. Same thing for the Orioles, and look at them. These teams have to get something for this nucleus. And, as far as pitching is concerned, I like the Nationals pitching. You never know from year to year that your pitching is going to be great. I have said that. In 2011, when I was working with the Phillies, you did not think that pitching was – you weren't going to have 2012 be – the all-star rotation that it was. It doesn't happen that way. And look at the Mets. The Mets thought they had a rotation of budding young stars. That team's not going to be together much longer. They might not even be together for the end of the month. Yeah. No, and I brought up the Expos in that, you kind of had this feeling like if they don't do something there, they're going to lose the franchise. Not that the Nationals are going to lose the franchise. They're doing well down there, but this eerie feeling of this thing could all of a sudden, and if they don't do something now, they could not be the Nationals that we've seen over those last couple of years where they're a perennial, contender for the division. Well, if you think about it, and I don't think your listeners, focus on the Nationals run, but, call it the Steven Strasburg run, call it the Bryce Harper run. This nucleus has been together. They've had some playoff failures. And, it doesn't get a lot of publicity in South Jersey, but I think the Nationals have had a real tough go of it. And I thought they brought in Dusty Baker because he's the right guy to be there and to win with them. And, the team has really taken on his personality. It's a nicer bunch. I even enjoy Jason Worth now. It just seems like, it's a team built to win right now. And there's a different sense of priority. For example, if you look at the American League, who's the best team in the American League? The Astros? Astros. If the Astros don't win the World Series, I would feel better as a fan who doesn't have an affiliation. I would feel better as a fan if the Orioles won the pennant as opposed to the Astros, because I think the Astros next year could be better than this year. But the Astros are the same thing. McCullers is young and Keuchel's young. Keuchel had a year last year that was forgettable. There were people ready to write him off. That's how fleeting pitching is. The good point there, Seth Everett with us. So the Astros are the best. That's who's the number one on your list, Astros. It probably tied with the Nats. I mean, I could make the case. Look, I saw a good chunk of the Astros last week. I will say I did not see them on Mother's Day because the selfish Yankees decided to have a stupid ceremony that I would have loved to have covered. But you do not. A team that cares about its fans does not have that ceremony on Mother's Day. If you think about kids in their 20s and 30s, even people in their 30s, Derek Jeter is the best player they knew. I grew up in North Jersey, so Don Mattingly was my guy. If Don Mattingly was getting his number retired on Mother's Day, I'd have been crushed. You have grandparents, you have moms, I have in-laws. What was I even going to... I had a credential. I know Derek Jeter. I could have gotten an interview with him. Could have posted a podcast with him. But no, I had to... You do that for Mother's Day, and I don't feel bad for the Yim Yams that abandon their families to go see the game in person? What about the people that were torn because, their mom wants to go out to dinner or have a barbecue or do something with their mom,
right.
And they want to see Derek Jeter get his number retired?
Not to mention,
I could not. And then the Yankees had the gall to say, well, that was Derek's choice. Sure, make him look like a selfish jerk.
One of my questions to you today for you, Seth, was your best Jeter moment. I know you've covered him a lot, and he was, look.
It's funny. It's funny. You want my best Jeter moment?
I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear it.
It's actually pretty recent. It's pretty recent. In 2014, I was on the Mets radio network, the New York Mets radio network, and the Mets were playing the Yankees, and it was at Citi Field, and I was trying to get Derek on the Mets pregame show. And I've known him over the years. We're not friends, but hi, bye, how you doing? That kind of thing. And I go up to Derek Jeter, and I said, hey, man, it's been a while. How you been? And he says, yeah, I haven't seen you around the ballpark. I said, well, I've been working with this team. And he goes, you working with the Mets? And I said, yeah. And he goes, and he gives me this such an arrogant but not a jerk move when he just goes, really? So, how could I lower myself?
Yeah, right. Like you've totally stooped down to that level. So you've had some interaction with this guy. I mean, the guy, like you said, I would not want to change places with anybody. I had the best job. I mean, is there some realism to this guy that has this life? I mean, is he a down to earth kind of guy in your dealings with him?
He's got wonderful parents. I understand why he did what he did. I don't think he was thinking of all the other people. I don't think he was thinking of the common man there. And I thought that, there is a belief, and I to a degree share this belief, that a Hallmark holiday is it's not Christmas, it's not Easter, it's a Hallmark holiday, it's not Hanukkah. But the thing about what Mother's Day is to me, is especially when you're married with children, it's about seeing grandparents, and it's about being with family. And, when I've had teams, I've worked for the Mariners, and when I was with the Phillies, I had to work on Mother's Day. And I understand playing the games, but give people the option. Don't make people feel compelled. I made this analogy earlier. If you told me that it was going to be a ceremony over the course of 4 days, that there were 4 designated days, then I could tell any Yankee fan, you know what? You see 3 of them live, and 1 of them you catch on MLB.com.
Not bad.
That's what I would say. But it wasn't that. It was one singular moment, a retiring of a number. That's something pretty significant. And I thought for a guy that doesn't come off as a selfish jerk, he really never did. I don't have a cross thing to say about Derek Jeter until this. And my issue was, I said it when the schedule first came out. When the schedule came out, I said, how are you going to make fans have to choose? And like I said, I had a credential through NBC. I had a time. I know him enough. I could have gotten 5 minutes with him, and I could have made it a podcast. It could have been my 100th episode, which is coming up. That would have been a really cool thing.
Nice.
I didn't even consider, who was I blowing off? I was blowing off my mother-in-law and pissing off my wife? Or I was blowing off my own parents and saying, why? To go cover a Yankee game? Oh, my goodness.
Seth Everett, NBC Sports Radio, Baseball Insider. All right, so no Mother's Day things for the Phils. We know that because they like to put on good shows, too. They like to do the, they put on good. They do it
great, yeah.
They do it great, but no Mother's Day for them. All right, Seth, a couple baseballs for you before we roll a couple pitches here. What's wrong with the Cubs?
I just don't think they've woken up yet. I just think that, it's a long season, and they're kind of in hangover mode. And
they're in their Cleveland Cavalier mode right now?
Well, I'll say this. Up until about 10 days ago, I really wasn't a big believer in the Cardinals. Of course, I said it on St. Louis radio, and lo and behold, here come the Cardinals again. So now maybe there's a credible threat. Milwaukee, I'm very high on. I've been thrilled with what the Brewers have done. I don't think they're winning the division. I don't think I'm being derogatory in saying that. So who's the credible threat? And if they wake up and they're playing 500 baseball, or they're just a game above or a game below, okay, they can win 10 in a row, and you wouldn't even blink. And if you need, like, it could happen before the end of May. It could happen in the beginning of June. And all of a sudden they take a 4-game lead and they never look back. So I just think that if they had the record that the San Francisco Giants had, I'd be concerned. The Giants should be concerned. The Blue Jays should be concerned. The Kansas City Royals should be concerned, even though they've won 4 in a row. To me, the Cubs are not the concern.
Yeah, and on you brought up the Royals and like the Pirates are in last place. These were like the stories of baseball a couple of years. These down-rotten teams that were coming out of the ashes. One makes it to the Royals win the World Series. But these were teams that were like 20-year-in-a-row losers. They finally win a couple of years in a row, and now they're both back in last place. Is that a bad thing, like to say, like the Royals and the Pirates, they're sinking back to the abyss?
Well, it's not really the abyss. There's a couple of things about it. The Pirates had it's more a statement about the 5-game series and now the 1-game playoff and how much of a crapshoot that is. And I've often said the playoffs aren't exactly fair. And I don't know that I'd fix them. I'm not saying that I'd change them. I'm just saying that to lose in the playoffs, like if you're evaluating a general manager, I used to say this to Ruben Amaro all the time, you get to the playoffs and get swept, you didn't have a bad year. Like, the general manager's job is to get to the postseason. The postseason is a crapshoot. Yeah. That's why in March I won't do predictions of the World Series. I don't know who's going to win that 5-game series. That's one bad bounce. I mean, all the Philly fans, just think about 2011.
Well, I hate the one-gamer. I hate the one-gamer.
But the thing is, the argument to that is, well, then win your division. Don't get sucked into it.
Sure.
You know what I mean? That's it beats the alternative, which is not making it at all. The thing about the Pirates is I compared the Pirates to the Phillies. The Pirates were the Phillies. They just don't have 08. They don't have the one time where they got the title. Now, the Royals, I was very surprised about this year. I thought I liked the lineup. I liked the staff. I liked the bullpen. I liked everything about that team. I said they contend. They battle with Cleveland. Maybe Cleveland wins it, but eventually they win. Now, obviously, no one thought the Twins would be any good. The Rockies have been great, the Diamondbacks, and those are all great stories. But the reality of it is that it's not just a one-hit wonder. Like, the Royals knew going in that they were going to have these guys coming up on free agency. There are 6 guys on their roster that are coming up on free agency. It was going to get ridiculously expensive. But if they had won again, let's say they win the World Series again this year, right. 2 out of the last 3 years, they re-signed half of them. The only reason why it appears to be the abyss is because they're not playing well. If they were playing better, no one says that.
Seth Everett, NBC Sports Radio host of Baseball Insider, and of course at Seth_Everett, and we talked to him about the world of baseball on Tuesdays right here on this program, the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. I look forward to it again. Avoid Mother's Day. We learned that today. Thanks, Seth.
Yes. Don't ask me to cover a game on Father's Day.